Hello guys, so right off the top I just want to put it out there that I don't usually put a lot of emphasis on dreams when it comes to this channel, and it's because I try to give you guys something a little bit more tangible to grab onto and look towards when it comes to what I base my topics on, my opinions on, and like what I base things on. I try to make it something tangible that you guys can actually see or go touch or go read about or go study in your word. And so that's why I try not to put a lot of emphasis on dreams, but this was just it really stood out to me, and it really stood out to me as something that I think the Lord would appreciate me sharing with you guys. So I had a dream, and it was about 2 nights ago, and I was actually meaning to put up a video explaining to you guys the breakdown of it a few days ago, but I just couldn't get around to it because life is really busy. But I'm gonna break it down to you now. So in my dream, um, it was we had destroyed our world so bad, guys. Like we really destroyed it to the point where it wasn't livable anymore. Nobody had an actual house to live in, and if it did, it was really damaged, burnt down. We literally burnt down our entire world. It was burnt, like everything was black, ashes, everything was dirty. There were so many homeless people on the streets. There was no food. There was barely any food for people to eat. We just really destroyed it so bad, and it got destroyed from us fighting each other. We got destroyed from the left fighting the right, and they were fighting each other so hard to the point where the entire world, not just the country, the entire world had burnt down to the ground, and it got so bad to where it wasn't livable. So there was, in my dream, I seen in a vision, I know it's weird, like I had a vision inside my dream, and in this vision inside my dream, I seen two portals, and they were like circles like this, and they opened up like that. They opened up like this, and then these portals were two different worlds. This was for the conservatives, and this was for the Democrats. And they were fighting each other so hard that they just could not exist in the same world. So these portals opened up. So they had two different worlds to live in. So again, this was the Democrats, and this was the conservatives. And so they were now living in these other worlds, these two portals. Now, to get inside of these two portals, you had to go up an escalator. So there was one escalator for the Dems and one escalator for the conservatives. And so majority of people that I know, they are Democrats. So this is people in my family, friends, majority of people that I know personally. So because the world was no longer livable, and I still had my mother with me, I was looking for a place for us to stay. I went up the escalator towards the Democrat side to see if I could find maybe friends or family that lived in that world, in this world full of Dems. And so as I went up the escalator and I went inside the door into this portal where all of the Dems are living, it looked very similar to the outside world that, where things were just destroyed, and it wasn't livable. There was no food. Everything was burnt to the ground. When you go inside the portal where the Dems were, it was barely any difference in how things looked. Everything looked pretty destroyed, except where there was a lot of people in there. It was really packed. There was a ton of people in there, and like it was, they were killing each other. They were acting like animals. They were, everyone had a gun. Like they were stealing. They were taking each other's food. They were fighting. Like it was just really bad. It was very dark and dingy, and it just looked really unhealthy to stay there. It looked so bad, guys. People were eating food off the ground. People were living in very torn down, raggedy looking houses, guys. It just looked really bad. People were homeless. People were on drugs. This is all happening inside the Dems portal. Remind you that we destroyed our world that we had lived in. So we have these new worlds to live in. And inside this new world of the Dems, it looked exactly the same as the old world that was destroyed. And so I couldn't find anyone there. I couldn't find anyone that I knew. I couldn't find family. And I definitely didn't want to stay there because it looked really, really repugnant. So I ended up leaving. You know, I left. I went right back down the escalator, those words. I get elevator and escalator mixed up. So I went right back down the escalator, and then I went up the other escalator on the right side, which is where the conservatives, you know, you were going into their portal. So I went up the escalator into their portal, and I went through the door of their portal, and immediately as soon as you walk into this huge building, if you will. The building is really the world. So inside this huge building, there's a bunch of little cookie cutter cute mini mansions that are there, and everything looks so pretty. It looks like suburbia. Everything just looks super pretty and well put together, and very clean. It looks like, you know, whoever was keeping the place up, they really did a great job on keeping it up, and everything just looked really nice. But something felt off, and I guess something fell off because there wasn't many people there. It was me, a couple of other women, maybe a couple of other men, and it just weren't, like, I can probably count on my two hands how many people existed inside this portal. It wasn't that many people there, but it was so nice, so big, you know, like all of these little mini mansions, and it just looked really nice. And there was one lady, and I do know this lady, but I know this lady personally, but if I say her name, you won't know who she is. But there's this one lady that I know personally in real life. She was kind of like the gatekeeper of the conservative portal where all these conservatives lived. She was the gatekeeper. And as soon as I walked in, she greeted me and she said, hey, like, you know, you don't have any money to stay here. You don't have any real, you know, I don't see on the list where you're supposed to be here, but what I can do is write your name on the list just between me and you can stay here in one of the mansions. And so I said, okay, you know, and I said, it's just gonna be me and my mom. And she said, okay. Now, granted, I have a really large family. I don't know where the rest of my family was, but I said, it's just gonna be me and my mom. And she said, okay, well, I can just put you on the list and she can stay with you and your mini mansion. So, my mom wasn't with me at that point, and so I began to ask her. I was asking her, hey, you know, why isn't it that many people here? Why is it just me, you, and a couple of other people here? And she said, oh, they don't want us to be here. They're gonna eventually come in and try to wipe out the place. They don't want us to be here, so we have to kind of stay on the down low so they don't find out that we're here. They don't want us to be here. And I was asking her, who is they? Like, who are they, these people that don't want us to be here? And she just wasn't giving me enough information. She wasn't telling me specific names, but she said the Dems, the Democrats, they don't want us to be here. And I'm thinking, why do they not want us to be here? And they have their entire portal over here, their entire world over here, and they don't want us to be here in this world? And she said, yeah, they don't want us to be here. So I just kind of brushed it off, and I went back through the door of the portal so that I can go back down the escalator and go get my mom, because my mom and I needed a nice place to stay. And we weren't going to stay where the Dems were, because that world looked very similar to the current world. Very destroyed, very destructive. People were on drugs. People were beating each other up. People were killing each other, eating off the ground, a bunch of homeless everywhere. It just looked really bad. So I wanted a nice place for my mom and I to stay. So I went back down the escalator to go get her, to bring her back up to the conservative portal, where it was a pretty nice world. Everything looked really nice. It was a nice place to stay and be safe. But for some odd reason, I couldn't find my mom, or she just didn't want to come with me, so she didn't end up coming with me. So I left her behind wherever she was. I can't really remember wherever she was. And I ended up going back up the escalator to my mini mansion. I went to get the key and I went to go stay in there. But I noticed that something was off, because it was still bothering me that not that many people were in this world, in this conservative world. There weren't that many people, even though it was very pretty. It was very cookie cutter. Everyone had their own mansion, very clean, a lot of nice healthy food there for you to eat, like really nice, you know. but there weren't that many people there, and it was something kind of eerie and off about this place that really bothered me. So I went, because remember, the little mini mansions are inside this bigger house. Like there's this huge house, but then inside this house there's mini mansions. So I went up the stairs to go look at the other mini mansions, to go kind of like communicate with the other women that were there to see why aren't there that many people here, you know, what's going on. So as I go up the stairs to kind of peep into these other mini mansions to figure out what's going on, there's this man in one of the mini mansions, and I hear him talking on the phone to someone, and he's saying, oh, you know, whoever he's talking to on the phone, they're telling him that it's time, and there could be no survivors, and he has to go ahead and get rid of everyone, and now it's the time. And so I'm thinking, what? It's like, you know, and he looks this guy, as he's talking on the phone, he looks very hyped up, very angry, and very just on fire to do his job. And so I knew something bad was going to happen then. So I went downstairs back into my mini mansion, and I kind of cracked the door. So as I was going back into my mini mansion and I cracked the door, I heard gunshots, and I just knew that all the women that were staying upstairs, the very few women that were in this conservative world, the very few men that were in this conservative world, they were killed. They were shot. They were killed in a sense where this guy who was really hyped up and really angry, he shot all of them, and I knew that he was coming for me. So then he came downstairs and he went to the mini mansion of the lady that greeted me, that I was telling you about. When I first came in the portal, she greeted me and she let me stay there for free. He shot her, or at least that's what it sounded like. So I knew after he shot her, he was coming to my mini mansion. So he came near my mini mansion. That's a tongue twister. So he came near my mini mansion, and I could hear him walking closely, and I don't know how I ended up with this, but I had a gun, and it wasn't like an assault rifle or anything. It was a handgun. I had a gun, and it was loaded. And so he came in my room, and as soon as he came in my room, he knew I was going to have a gun, and he tried shooting me. But as soon as he tried to shoot me, I shot him a couple of times in the chest, and he kept coming towards me. And as he was coming towards me, I was saying, you're going to force me to do it. I don't want to do it. And so I shot him a couple of times in the head, guys. And even though I shot him a couple of times in the head, he was still strong. Like he was still coming towards me. And so he had missed me. He shot all of his bullets out, and he had missed me. And so he went to try to shoot me one more time, but he didn't have any bullets in his gun. He tried to shoot it, and it wasn't clicking. He had no more bullets left. So he grabbed his gun and he put it in my hand, and he tried to make me shoot him, but I knew there was no more bullets left, so I didn't even try it. But I still had my gun, remember, and I knew that I had one bullet left. So I took it and I shot him in the head one last time, and he died. And I didn't want to have to do that, but he was really leaving me up to no point. Now, with all of that being said, there's a lot that you can really take from that dream. And you know, there's just what I see coming in the future is I see a lot of death coming. I see a lot of people dying from a war that's coming. I think a war with the citizens are definitely coming. And I don't think we've ever had a situation where our government has had to go to war with the citizens that live inside this nation. But I think we're approaching a point where our government, our military, will have to go to war with the citizens that live inside this country. And I don't think we've ever had a situation like that before, but that's what it's telling me, is that we're eventually gonna approach a point really, really fast where it's gonna get so bad to where we can't exist. Conservatives and Democrats cannot exist within the same world, or at least the same country. And so a cleansing, if you will, is gonna have to happen. And it's unfortunate, and I'm not supporting a cleansing of either side, if you will, but a cleansing is going to happen to where people are literally going to go to war with each other in the streets. And I think we're approaching that really, really quickly, which is why I urge you guys to keep an eye on the next couple of weeks, especially as we before the inauguration date and the transition of power that's supposed to be happening. I really encourage you guys to keep an eye on not necessarily mainstream media, because they're not reporting what's actually going on behind the scenes. So I highly encourage you to keep an eye on some of the alternative news outlets who are actually sharing the truth of what's going on. And then stay safe, guys. You know, they've already deployed the military to Washington, D.C. They've already drove in the National Guards on buses. And, you know, you've already got Antifa and Black Lives Matter armed up marching the streets. And I just pray that a lot of you guys use wisdom and discernment, and that you stay inside your houses, and that you stay safe, especially start stacking up on food and water, something that could last you a couple of weeks or a couple of days, because we're entering into some really dark times. And my dream just really confirms it, that we are about to enter into a season where a lot of people are going to die, and our world is not going to be as we know it to be. We're not going to be able to recognize our country anymore, because in my dream there was no it was so bad, we destroyed our world so bad to where you couldn't even recognize it. We had to, two completely different worlds had to be created, and we had to exist in those. That's how bad it got. So it's really just letting me know that we're gonna get to a point where our country and our world, it's not going to be anything that we be able to recognize, and it's going to get so bad to where people are literally killing each other. Our government is going to turn on us and start killing the citizens, guys. So prepare, pray, stay safe, and try not to get rowdied up and wild up in all of the chaos and all of the fear tactics and everything that's going on right now. So stay prayed up. And I wanted to share with you a word that the Lord shared with me the other day as I was praying on this, and I heard him say, look up, your redemption draws near. And I was thinking, I asked him, because I think it's funny because I've always struggled with that scripture. And I asked him, I said, Lord, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Look up, your redemption draws near. And he just said it again. He said, look up, your redemption draws near. And so I'm not even sure 100% what that completely means for us as a nation or as a world. But I just know that it means that something good will come from this. Something good is going to come from this. And our Savior is definitely coming. He's on the horizon. And to just wait. And you know, the word also tells us to watch and pray, and we watch and pray because our redemption draws near, guys. So just hold on to that word, and pray and seek his face. But I can go on and on with this for days, but I just wanted to share with you that dream that I had, and as a way of confirming maybe what God is already showing some of you in your life. So stay prayed up, guys. Prepare, not only spiritually but physically. I love you, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Maybe if after I broke down my dream, God showed you something completely different, you have a completely different take on this, I'd love for you to share that in the comments below. Stay safe, guys.